door, stone door, high quality, low quality, decorated, not decorated. I don't care. Just any door. Now what we're going to do with that, though, is then I can turn around and go, well, we're going to make a bedroom out of this, and this whole room is going to become a bedroom temporarily. And we're going to make this a dormitory, and we're going to name it. Eventually this will be a barracks, and we won't leave it as a dormitory necessarily, but for right now, I need a place for my dwarves to stay, and staying in a dormitory is better than staying in no room at all. Staying on a bed in a dormitory is better than staying in a bed in no room at all. Staying in a bed in a dormitory is better than sleeping on the rocks. So this is an improvement for their mood, basically. Now, I think in a temple or in a fortress like ours with gods like ours, we need to start thinking about where we're going to put things later on. So we've already got, let's see, here is our food stockpile, right? We've got raw food above that, food stockpile for raw food, food processing, prepared food stockpile, drinks, barracks, meeting hall, hospital, right? That gets us everything then. So let's dig a little deeper here. And the meeting hall is probably the more important of the two over the hospital, given that we are not in hostile terrain. If we were in hostile area, I would suggest getting a temporary hospital up, if nothing else. We may still do that if we get attacked, but for now I'm more concerned with getting up some of these optional areas, I guess you'd say. We don't yet even have, we've just now gotten our farm plots built so that we now actually have, we have to determine what plants we're going to put in our plots. So you have to do that season by season. So spring, and now one of these I'm going to devote almost exclusively to plum helmets. Like I said, they're kind of a staple. They grow in just about every season, and actually plum helmets do grow in every season. What am I thinking? It's quarry bushes that grow in almost every season, and then plum helmets in the fall or in the winter as well. Okay, so now there's 4 seasons of plum helmets. That plot will basically just sit there and crank plum helmets out all day long. Now, the other crops need a good mention here. Pigtails and quarry bushes are my 2 second most important crops. Quarry bushes, like plum helmets, are primarily a foodstuff source, and pigtails are my primary thread source. Animals are going to take a little while to ramp up. Silk is a little harder to come by, so pigtails kind of have to carry the load with respect to all of our cloth whenever possible. So we're going to plant a field for quarry bushes in any season where pigtails won't grow. So we'll do pigtails in the spring, or we can't grow pigtails, so we'll grow quarry bushes, and then we'll do summer. And in summer, we've already got the pigtails picked out because we're already in summer. And then fall, we'll do pigtails again. And then in the winter, you can't grow pigtails or quarry bushes, and we'll do dimple cups. And that'll give us dye for the off-season. So on this plot, we're going to get 1 quarry bush and 2 pigtails. Okay? Go to the next one over here, and we'll do pigtails in the summer and in the fall. And in the winter, we will do dimple cups. So we'll get dye out of 2 fields then. That's enough to dye half of our cloth right there. Over here, we'll come over and we'll do sweet pods in the spring. Sweet pods can be milled down in all sorts of useful ways. And in spring, there we go, spring and summer. And then in the summer, we will do cave wheat, and this will be the only cave wheat we get, unfortunately, until we expand our farming. And in the winter, we'll do plum helmets. Or we could do dimple cups if we want to switch to more dye production, for example. But for right now, I want to make sure our food is on top, and cutting our food production in half to do dimple cups is more than enough for now. Our farmer, if he's not busy making weapons, will come along and start planting crops for us. Now we get to work around one of the issues that really plagues new players. I've seen it posted over and over again on the Dwarf Fortress subreddit, over and over and over and over. Very common issue, very simple solution. The symptoms are this. You'll be planting your farms, and all of a sudden you'll start getting these notices that there are no seeds available, despite you knowing that there are plenty of seeds in your fortress. And in fact, when you finally get around to checking, turns out, yep, you've got plenty of seeds, hundreds in fact in some cases. But you're still getting cancellation messages on a regular basis. There aren't seeds to plant of the types you need, even though there are seeds in inventory. And what's going on there usually is that your dwarves are moving the seeds around, and they can't be planted while they're being moved by another dwarf. So the mechanism is this. Somebody produces a seed somewhere in the fortress. Your dwarf grabs the barrel full of seeds and takes off to go pick it up. Well, while he's carrying that barrel, nobody else can use any of the seeds from the barrel he's carrying. So all of the fortress seeds are now off limits. Once he gets the seed, he takes the seed barrel back to the stockpile and drops it off. Now, if somebody grabs it right then and there and grabs a seed out of it, they'll be able to plant. But, invariably, somebody else is creating a seed somewhere down in the fortress somewhere else, and a new guy is going to grab the seed barrel and take off, and the process will repeat, causing cancellation spam and breakage in your production chain. You don't want that. That's bad. So we get around that by making sure that the barrel will never go on walkabout. And to do that requires that we set up a very specific production chain. So bear with me here while I do this. This will require 3 stockpiles to handle this. Alright, now these 3 stockpiles are basically sub-stockpiles for the production chain on this floor. This innermost stockpile is the output stockpile. As plants are harvested, they'll be dropped in the nearest stockpile, and in this case, the nearest stockpile is right here. So they will take one step over and drop off the plant and go right back to harvesting, and their harvesting cycle will be very quick. Stuff will get moved from here down to the main stockpile a couple floor down below. If it turns out that they move the stuff ahead of time, no big deal. We're not losing a whole lot of production if they move downstairs to drop off instead of right here. But this basically gives us a plant overflow stockpile that only holds plants. This stockpile will allow us to store plants in case this one fills up with everything else. We don't want to rely on that, but it gives us some backlog coverage as well. Now the other 2 stockpiles deal specifically with our seed problem. The outermost stockpile is what picks up the seeds. This one will take from anywhere, but it doesn't have any barrels. And so this one is collecting all the seeds from your fort. What will happen is a dwarf will create a seed somewhere in the fort, someone will pick it up and bring it here and drop it off. And the seed will be in a stockpile. At that point, someone will take that seed and move it to this stockpile, which is full of barrels, where it will be stored. When your farmers need to plant, there will be plenty of seeds in the barrel stockpile, because it's right here. And it's only taking from links, so the barrels that are in it will never go on walkabout to pick seeds up somewhere else. Now, it is possible, albeit very unlikely, that you will see an occasional cancellation message this way, because there is a small transit time where they pick up the barrel, move 2 steps and grab the seed, move 2 steps and drop the barrel off. And if somebody during those 2 steps in seed pickup actually needs a seed, you may still get an occasional cancellation. But it'll be 1 instead of several, and it'll be 1 instead of a cycle of several, followed by a cycle of several, followed by a cycle of several. I can't honestly say that I've seen one after having set it up this way, but I acknowledge that the possibility does exist. That should, however, prevent most of your cancellation messages from occurring while you still actually have seeds to produce. Now, we've got our animal areas dug out and our conservatory. That's good. We've got our raw food. We've got our bird area. We can move our birds downstairs. This is food production, or excuse me, this is food stockpile, food production, prepared food, drinks, barracks, meeting hall, right? And then hospital below that. And that's everything up to a sustainable fort in terms of being able to keep our dwarves alive. So now let's start thinking towards security while our miners continue getting our excavation done. The first and easiest piece of security we can implement is a drawbridge, but that does require a little bit of work on our part. We'll stash a mechanics workshop here temporarily to get the mechanisms we're going to need to build our levers and to build our drawbridge. But it won't be constructed if we don't give somebody the labor in Dwarf Therapist. As you can see, my specialist craftsmen stop hauling, basically. Before much longer, we're going to get our first migrant wave, and while it may not be enormous, we'll get enough migrants to make them all haulers and have them handle the hauling duties, while my specialized craftsmen with higher skills are working on more important tasks. Now, our miner, this miner here, we're going to leave alone. He's technically our doctor, and eventually he'll go on doctor duty exclusively, but for now we can leave him doing his mining jobs. Okay, we'll go ahead and make him into a crafter miner for now. And that will effectively shut off all hauling in my fortress, with the exception of the farmer moving food to food stockpiles so it doesn't rot. That's it. I'm going to turn Dr. Labors back on for him, and we'll have him nursemaiding as well. Let's see. All right. So that gets everybody set up in their midterm profession. The only guy that's not in his final profession is our doctor, because we've got him doing mining jobs for right now while we don't have anybody to doctor. Let's take a moment and kind of roll through some of what Dwarf Therapist can actually tell you. In addition to the skill levels of the dwarves, which you see here represented as numbers, you can also see that over here on the right in their skills. You can look into their attributes, and this is the information that Dwarf Fortress already gives you. This guy, for example, is remarkably flimsy. Really slow to heal. Has a lot, more than the average amount of patience. Very good intuition. Smart guy. If you're concerned with dwarves being suited for roles that that dwarves go into things that they are best at, then you could look at what their roles would be, and it'll tell you what jobs they would be best at right out of the box. Okay? Our doctor here, who is currently doing mining and is subbing as our manager, has skill in medicine, basically. We've given him skill, and so his roles reflect that already. Suturer, wound dresser, even the stuff he's not particularly good at doctoring actually up here near the middle or top of the list. But there's a few things that he's actually good at right out of the box, even without us having done anything. He makes a middling appraiser or broker, so we may use him as that temporarily when the time comes. He's a reasonable carpenter or gem cutter if we had to. But really, we want to keep him doctoring and mining whenever possible. You'll see similar information reflected for the other dwarves as well. If we look at Lack and Fear here, can see that his best role is mining. Well, no kidding, because he's been mining for so long at this point that he's developed into a good miner, even if he wouldn't have been normally. He's also a reasonable architect, a decent hunter. He can make crafts and do pottery and so forth, and he's reasonably good at those things. Now, remember, all dwarves can do all jobs, so it's not like you have to assign dwarves to things that they are good at necessarily. And a dwarf who does a thing that they are not good at will become good at it eventually. There's no such thing as a dwarf that caps out and won't get any better at a skill. Now, their attributes can cap out, but they won't cap out their skills. If you look at their preferences, it will tell you what they like. This is important if, for example, they became nobles, because then you have to worry about placating them with gifts and so forth. So ideally, we would want to give this guy a cow pet, make him sand pear cider and give him a two-legged rhino lizard meal. I mean, if we could have one of those, which we probably don't, because we don't have any sand pears and we don't have any two-legged rhino lizards, so this guy's going to be just boned all to hell. If he was a noble, he'd be demanding that we make figurines and backpacks and greaves, likely made out of these materials. And these are the things that he likes. So if he were in the militia and we gave him a bismuth bronze piece of armor, for example, he would tend to become attached to it a little more quickly. He'll find that he likes it better. He'll be happy about it, etc., etc., etc. Catering to a dwarves' needs makes them happier. Happier dwarves are more effective and more efficient. This will tell me if he had any injuries or health issues. It can tell me a bit about his personality. Some folks are volatile and prone to, flying off the handle for the least little thing. You want to make sure those folks get their bedrooms and so forth if you're seeing to their needs less than equally. It'll tell you what they care about and what they don't, what their dreams and aspirations are. So, for example, Clinodev values martial prowess, but tends to avoid physical confrontations, and is conflicted because his culture values martial prowess. All right. So where are we on our mining here? Let's take a quick peek. Get this unpaused so our miners are actually doing something useful. Cancels, dig, lost pick. Why did you lose your pick? Did I miss an announcement here? The pick is literally laying right there. Why did you lose it? I don't understand. Did I appoint a militia guy and didn't realize it? No. Oh, that's why. Because I made him into a stonecrafter and forgot that he was doing mining jobs right now because I don't have a stonecrafting workshop up. Ha! There we go. So let's put him back to work. And he may not grab the same pick again. He may use a different one now, but that's okay. Somebody will come along later and pick that pick up and put it where it belongs. Mine, dwarves, mine! A lot of jobs to get done. That's not really what I wanted to build. Whoops. Let's try this again with 100% more mechanics workshop. And we'll crank out some basic rock mechanisms to use for drawbridges and levers. And in particular, now that I'm looking at it, I know something I didn't do that I need to. This other seed stockpile, the barrel stockpile, also needs to take from our temporary stockpile, so that the seeds we have are not being moved by my farmer one by one from the temporary pile, but are instead being moved directly into the main seed stockpile and used there. And as you can see, our farmer has started to plant, and if we zoom in real close, you can even make out the little bits of greenery here in the tile set. And we'll move all the birds indoors. It looks like draft animals this time. We got a water buffalo bull and a mule, both of whom we will butcher momentarily for meat and bones and such. Still doing okay on drinks and food. Slowly they mine. Oh, this is going to be complex, but bear with me here a sec, guys. Okay, so let's talk about what I want to do with all these little stockpiles I'm creating here and why I'm doing it. Now, these two buildings on this vertical row are my stills, and so the primary thing I need to have around them is barrels and plants. And there are plants directly above here in the food stockpile if I need them. And I can store the barrels directly on site next to the stills so that they're available for use immediately. We'll set that barrel stockpile up to take from our temporary stockpile. So any barrel furniture that has been stored there will be drained out and stored where we want it. And I haven't quite decided what I want to do with this outer stockpile just yet. I may repurpose it for something else here in a moment. But the gist of it is that these other little stockpiles in each corner here of the kitchens are designed to hold a different foodstuff. For example, meat in one, fish in another, eggs in a third, plants in a fourth, and then at that point I can make a lavish meal, and there are 4 different ingredients within one step of the kitchen at all times. It's a little finicky, but you can set it up pretty easily, and once it's set up, you're in business. Your haulers will kind of keep themselves busy trying to keep those stockpiles filled. Make sure that each of those little sub-stockpiles does have barrels so that they will store as much of the raw food as possible. That way you'll cut down on repeat trips as much as you can. But even with that, your guys are going to go trucking through this stuff pretty quickly, and so it's important that your raw food stockpile be your main raw food stockpile be reasonably close if you're not going to enlarge these stockpiles yourself. Now, in addition to that, I have this other stockpile here, which I'm going to get rid of all the settings on it. I don't want anything stored here for now. We'll figure out what we're going to do with it later. But I can just disable everything out of it, and so it'll store nothing. Although it looks like a stockpile, nothing will be stored there. And that gets us all of our food, our barrels, and everything we need for our main food production area here up and running. Actually, I take it back. I know what I can do with part of this. And although I'm going to allow them all, I'm really not worried about the venoms here. This is primarily just for the milk. This will give me a spot to store my milk directly adjacent to where my workshops are going to be producing potentially cheese, and so my cheese will be produced here. My animals will also be shorn here, since my animals are like 3 floors upstairs. It's like 4 steps to the shearing booth, and they get sheared and then immediately taken right back upstairs, and they're done. That'll allow us to produce our animal products here on site, our cheese on site for use by our kitchens. It'll be stored. I can store it in the main food stockpile. Cheese is wonderful that way. All right, so milk is stored in barrels. I need to make sure I allow barrels there. All right, and that gives us that. Now the other stockpile I'll figure out what to do with later. It's not important for right now. Oh yes, and the final touch, all of these need to be set for foods. Meat in the top left. Okay, and each of those is set to drain the main food stockpile, so they'll be stored they'll be stored as priority, basically. Not sure how that one staircase got winged with a non-dig order. I must have done something there. That's not good. Have to build that back in. Huh.
The migrants have arrived. Hey, they've got new shoes. Get those shoes, boys.
Alright, let's see what the migration ferry has brought us and get those dwarves named for those folks who donated. Alright! Well, we got two. But they're both fairly skilled crafters, believe it or not. That's not a bad thing. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get them haulerized. So they'll immediately take up item relocation duties for the fortress. And here in a minute, when I've got an actual forge up and running, then we probably will put them to better use. And the miners are finally closing in on the last of the dig designations. Yeah, something is definitely weird here. Okay. Alright, now I think I've got those guys all sorted out where I want them. Temporarily, we're going to have our engineer doing some hauling jobs here. And still the mining continues. It's time to start thinking about getting some furniture up and running, and at least temporarily we're going to be doing our dining room in stone. And queuing them that way, I can queue up all 20 of those items and I don't have to worry about putting a repeat order in. I don't have to worry about filling my queue multiple times. Long live the workflow. As you can see, they're starting to deliver the peacocks to their pen. Now, one thing we really haven't done yet is look at those sorts of things that will make our dwarves' lives better in terms of their stress. So we haven't looked at building, really, a tavern or a temple yet. We're going to need to do that. We don't have a hospital up and running. We're going to need that. We don't have a fishing area up and running. We're going to want that. Let's see here. I'm thinking we'll start with the fishing and hospital because those are both going to involve some plumbing and excavation over towards the river. Let's take care of those next. So this was going to be the hospital floor, and on the hospital floor we're going to have to designate some space for wells. We want to make sure that our dwarves can get access to fresh water for medical care as well as for a few other uses. And it's possible for a well to become contaminated or dirty or whatever, and you don't want to use it, so we'll make sure we have space for multiple wells if we want them. Let's see, we'll do a pattern, I guess. Why not? We'll do, shoot. Okay, so down the stairs, and then we'll do downstairs from here. Is it underneath still? Good, good. Okay. A lot closer to the stream than I remembered. Woo! Now, although technically there's a surface access here, we're going to wall it back up when we're done and close it in. This will allow us to start miners from both ends. Oops, forgot to mine that floor there. I think we may run into a problem. Carved downward staircase. Oh, they're all in the middle of the well at the moment. And they'll go to work excavating the well for us. This is a sizable well, more than you will probably need. A simple 3x3 or a 1x1 space dug deep enough and with enough water flow in will be more than sufficient. But I'll need to explain the plumbing I'm doing here a little bit, because Dwarf Fortress does do a few things that new players are not necessarily expecting. It does have a model of pressure, so it understands that we're several floors down from where the river is, and that all of that water that's up above us will now be coming in at a much higher pressure than normal. And it will happily flood your fortress right back up to the level of the river if it can. Perfect. Okay, now then. At that point, we've got everything in place we need for the well, except the well itself, of course, and an enemy remover. And we're going to get the enemy remover at the Mason's workshop real fast. We'll have him do a grate for us real quick with whatever stone happens to be available. We'll get that installed, and then we will be in business. Okay, so our miners need something to do. Our carpenter's asleep. Our farmer has planted everything? Really? Everything he can plant? Really? No, surely not. gonna say he better not have no job. Better be on the business doing that planting. Get out there and make them veggies, son. Okay. He's in between jobs. That's what's going on there because he's harvesting as he goes. Oops. One other thing I need to set. Orders only farmers do my harvesting. I don't want every Tom, Dick, and Dwarfy trying to harvest my crops. Our carpenter needs something to do, and our miners need something to do. Okay, good. We can get that taken care of. Let's see. What do I want the carpenter doing? I probably want to get him a proper workshop area built, don't I? Yeah, that's probably the best way to go. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go down here. Here's our hospital. This will be our wood area. And my wife has begun chuckling at my description of this area as our wood area. See, even when you guys don't make the sex jokes, I'm still getting them from this end regardless. Balls of Steel? Yep, we'll name the fortress that. That's mild compared to what my wife probably would come up with. My wife honestly wanted the symbol to be a spear with two balls. We probably should have thought about it. Okay, let's see. What do we got? Alright, so there's hospital and our carpenter area. Okay, so this is going to be our wood area. We'll need a few more things before we can put in the ashery and assorted thing, a wood crafter's station, basically. Now, although this says wood, because this is disallowed right here, I'm going to disallow wood temporarily. We really do not have the hauling labor with just 2 additional dwarves to start hauling wood below ground. It's not a very valuable resource. We have enough of it on hand to last us for a good period of time. Our fortress isn't even walled in yet. Carrying the wood downstairs isn't really a high priority. But getting these workshops up and running wouldn't be a bad idea, because then we can start moving our carpentry production below ground. Now this guy is a skilled furnace operator. Mr. Tartar is here, so he's going to get some furnace operation done for us and hopefully grind out the last of that bronze. I'd really like to get that stuff downstairs without having to move it down raw. stray ram has been stung by a bumblebee. Ha! Tough titty. And since it's summer, now's a good time to start talking about cave moss. No, not that kind you probably need an antifungal spray for. I'm talking about the kind that will actually grow in our fortress once we've actually penetrated the caverns. And so after I've got my fortress rudiments up and running, what I'll typically do is dig a pilot hole straight to the bottom of the world. Now my pilot hole is not actually intended to go all the way to the bottom of the world. It's primarily intended to discover the caverns. Now, if I'm unlucky, or lucky, depending on how you want to look at it, the pilot hole will actually hit the magma sea before I hit any caves because there will be solid rock directly below my staircase all the way down. It's possible. It happens. Occasionally you will find columns of rock that progress through one or more caverns, and it is possible in certain locations to have a rock column that goes surface to magma sea without interruption, allowing you to dig one single central staircase for an entire fortress if you so desire. We will probably find out that this is hitting the caves at some point, and we'll have to kind of wall our staircase in order to keep the caves out. But for now, let's worry about finding out where the caves are, and that means we need a pilot hole. So although I revealed I didn't pay any attention to where the caves actually were or what their layout was directly below us, since I wasn't concerned with that, our guy digging down here will start to get deeper, and he should be hitting the caves any time now, actually. Ooh, maybe we missed the first cave. Maybe. Wow. Okay, so there's a cave. I don't know if that's level 1 or level 2. But, cave, nonetheless, and that's good, because that's what we needed. Let's go up one floor, and we dug out directly above water, which is not ideal. Well, technically we dug out several floors above the water, but so we're not going to be able to wall that back in and keep going. Our central staircase would have to be pumped dry, and that would not really be a massive undertaking. So that's a very, very late game kind of thing if I want to have a main central staircase that runs top to bottom of the entire fort. Instead, what we would end up doing is we would dig a staircase down to like this floor and then detour over to right here and then dig down deeper through that rock column that you can see right here. So we're going to cancel the rest of this digging designation now. I don't want some dwarf in a future era to come across that digging designation and decide he needs to open up a channel between whatever caverns might still be out there at that point, or to punch a hole into the river and suddenly flood something I don't want flooded. So I remove them when I'm done with them. So since this is actually sky 1, 2, so it's a level above the water. So this is looking down from above. We're going to truncate our staircase here for now, at least. Now the rest of the staircase should be safe to dig out, so we'll go ahead and do that now. Get that done. And then we have a special process we'll have to go to seal that hole back up, because right now this is open to where a flying creature could fly in from the caves and get into our dungeon, and we don't like that. We don't want that. We want our fortress nice and sealed up and tight whenever we aren't prepared to defend an area. But now that we've actually punched a hole all the way to the caverns, what we're going to find is that if we go down and we start looking at our crop areas, we're going to start to see cave moss growing in spots. And those spots will eventually expand and cover that area and can be used to... Oh, see there, we've discovered another cave. Nice. Apparently we were real close to one of the caves when we came down the first time, and we just winged it. Wow, looky there. Okay. So there's our cave. Okay, so here we are. Where did we actually punch a hole? There it is. So we found the cave the hard way. When we actually started to expand our staircase, we found out that the cave is right there. We just missed it just barely on the way down initially. So there's only a couple of floors. Let's see, looks like maybe 1, 2, 3 floors exposed. So that's only 9 chunks of wall. So we're just gonna wall that back up here in a second. I'm gonna get somebody to do my wood cutting. I'll have them mine this tree out real quick, and we'll get rid of it, and then we'll wall up in behind this area here. And I really don't care what materials are available. We'll use whatever's on hand at the moment. I think I can suspend those because it will hold the jobs, and that will allow our mason to go work on the staircase wall that's more important right now than getting the dining room up and done.